time for Where Hollywood Hides. Here's Bob and Suzanne.
Chicken joke! I'm Mrs. Cleaver.
From Television City in Hollywood.
Boy, the way Glenn Miller plays.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology. Nanu.
Baby, you're the great.
Here comes the judge.
More cowbell.
Not special.
There's anything wrong with that?
And now for something completely different.
There's no business like show.
Hi, and welcome to Where Hollywood Hides. This is podcast episode number 26. My name is Bob McCullough.
I think I should go first.
Go for it.
Hi, this is Where Hollywood Hides. This is Suzanne Herrera McCullough.
That's so cute when you do that.
What's your name?
Bob McCullough.
I have a cold,
You do.
so I hope I don't sneeze all over you.
I hope not. I hope not.
I have been up half the night.
Sniffling.
That too,
Hacking.
but practicing
Okay. What? Practicing what? Tennis?
my autograph.
Oh, your autograph. A good idea because
I know I'm supposed to, sound very professional like we've done this, but to be honest with you, I have been asked to sign the book, the great book that we have just published.
Where Hollywood Hides, Santa Barbara, Celebrities in Paradise.
Right, it's a great book.
Hardcover.
It's a fun read.
Full format, full color.
And I've been practicing.
Packed with celebrity photos.
That's right.
And we're already getting pre-orders right off the website.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
People
I'm
are
really
ordering
excited.
the book, and it's still at the printers. You know, our official publication date is September 1st, which is really coming up quickly.
We hope we can make that.
I'm
far,
I'm
it
sure we
looks
will.
like.
And it's going to be set up on Amazon, on our website. It'll be available at Barnes & Noble. How would you describe the book?
I would describe the book as a fun, quick read with fabulous pictures of some of the special celebrities in Santa Barbara.
I mean, it's really the ultimate souvenir of Santa Barbara. So if our listeners go to wherehollywoodhides.com, they'll be able to pre-order the book now, get free delivery, and we will autograph that copy for you. You know, today we have a great interview with Lloyd Schwartz, producer of the Brady Bunch for many years, and the son of Sherwood Schwartz, who was really something of an early 60s television icon, having created Gilligan's Island and Brady Bunch. And Lloyd went on to an incredible career of his own, and he's written for, everything you can think of from that generation. He wrote for Harper Valley PTA, the Munsters, Baywatch, and he's got some great perspectives on what it takes to succeed in the business and really how to break in that I think are going to be really interesting.
So I was reading Hollywood Reporter. They have come out with the top 100 films of all time.
Oh.
Now, I know you're cringy. I'm not going to name the 100 films, but...
No, I love those lists.
Well, we don't have time for that, but I'm going to tell you the top 10.
Okay.
1 through 10. Do you want to guess any of them?
Yes, I do.
I'll give you like a couple guesses.
Okay, Lawrence of Arabia.
Wrong.
On the Waterfront.
Wrong.
Butch Cassidy.
I'm sure they're in the...
If you tell me Hello Dolly or something.
I'm sure they're in the 100 best, but the top 10, drum roll please, are we ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Number 1 is The Godfather.
Really? The number 1. That's okay. This is not the AFI list. It's the Hollywood Reporter list, right?
Well, but this does carry a lot of clout.
I'll watch it anytime it's on.
Don't diss them.
I'm not.
Number 2, The Wizard of Oz. Now, these are two movies that we love. Come on.
Okay, so Gone with the Wind is in here.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Your guessing is over.
Okay.
Number 3, Citizen Kane.
Okay, good.
Number 4, The Shawshank Redemption.
No kidding.
I know.
No kidding.
Number 5, I don't get this,
Yeah.
but you love this movie.
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction.
Awesome.
Please.
But I'm shocked that the top 100 would have such contemporary stuff on it.
Get with it.
Don't tell me Django Unchained is
I
on this
said no
list.
more guessing
All right.
for you. Number 6, Casablanca. I love that movie.
Absolutely.
Number 7, Godfather 2.
Okay, so he has 2 in the top 10.
Unbelievable. Number 8, E.T.
What?
That was a classic. Come on, there is no other E.T. Nothing even came close to that.
Yeah, okay.
It may not be your thing, but...
I'll take Jaws over E.T. if we're doing Spielberg. Okay.
Number 9, 2001.
Yeah.
Space Odyssey.
Yeah, I mean, Walking Upside Down.
And
you can't
number
beat that.
10.
Yeah.
You'll never guess.
No, I won't, because I'm pretty well stunned by some of this already.
And this is a movie I never saw.
Okay.
Schindler's List.
Awesome movie.
There you go.
Awesome movie.
There
You
you
really
go.
should see it. It's like literature.
But it's so sad. It's so sad, isn't it?
No, it's very uplifting.
I'm in a time of my life here where I want happy endings.
And
Hollywood endings is good for me.
Well, it had a pretty positive. It had an uplifting message, certainly. And Liam Neeson was
he's extraordinary actor.
That was the first time I'd ever really seen him, and you kind of see the heroism that he can portray. Anyway, that's a great list. I want to see every one of those as well as the other 90.
So, as I was looking through the Hollywood Reporter, I found the place.
Which, by the way, I want our listeners to know that you are obsessed with the Hollywood Reporter.
Well, it's just a great read.
It has taken its place on my pillow.
Well, besides Vanity Fair.
Right.
I found the island that I would like to go to.
Am I invited?
There's a new resort opening. It's Marlon Brando's island.
Oh, cool.
That he purchased in the 60s. And it's going to be a 35-villa resort named the Brando.
Really?
And the prices start, now we can afford this, only $4,000 a night.
Let's do it. We'll book a week.
This was in the works long before he passed away, which is about 10 years ago he passed away. And it's very eco-friendly. There is no carbon footprint. It is unbelievable what they've done. And his vision was, of course, to keep the island the way it is. Everything is done by solar. Everything is run on coconut oil.
Is there any surf?
Anyway, I thought that was very cool. And
the ultimate celebrity retreat.
This is why I thought it'd be appropriate for our Where Hollywood Hides, since we're dealing with great older actors. This was a place where he wanted to die, and unfortunately, he didn't die there. But anyway,
no, he died in the smog of L.A.
I know. So, Bob, someday soon, I would really like you to take me to the island of Tetiora.
You're on.
Okay, baby. Sure.
Well, listen, we've got Lloyd on the line, and one of the things I wanted to talk to him very early on, because it's difficult sometimes it's difficult when you're the child of somebody who's really well known in the business to make your own imprint. Lloyd's certainly done that. But Lloyd, I want to ask you, at what point in your life do you think you really became aware of the fact that your dad was kind of a big deal in show business?
I remember my dad, he was a famous radio writer, starting with Bob Hope, but I kind of got aware of it, what he was doing when he was writing the Red Skelton show. And Red Skelton used to ad-lib all the time, and Dad was home watching the show, and he would just go crazy because the lines he wrote were out and Skelton's ad-libs were in, and it was I remember that. But he, as a dad, he just went off to work and came back. Show business was not prominent in my growing up until he did like Gilligan's Island.
So as a kid, though, you didn't find yourself hanging out with Red Skelton or on those sets because your dad was trying to maintain a normal family life.
Yeah, pretty much so. I mean, I remember I started getting personally involved when he was doing Gilligan's Island, and I'd go down to the set, and then I actually worked on that original series for just a couple of days, like holding cue cards for Jim Backus.
Because you were like in high school during Gilligan.
Yeah.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I have an older brother and a younger brother and a younger sister. My older brother had nothing to do with show, but my dad got him a job working around, cleaning up around sets and things when he was in high school. But he eventually became an ophthalmologist. And my younger brother is a show business attorney and also has become a writer. And then my sister is a writer also.
So there's something in the DNA.
Yeah. I remember I was writing through junior high school and high school, and then in college. I was an English major, but I got a master's in television at UCLA. So
did you go to UCLA as an undergrad?
Yeah, undergraduate, and then undergraduate, and then I actually I did some stand-up comedy back in the late '60s, and I started writing. I saw my first television things for Love American Style.
So tell me that process? Even though your dad is a very successful writer-producer, Gilligan's Island became a major hit during its time. All you had to say was, my dad produced Gilligan's Island, and everybody wanted to hear all about it, I'm sure. But that still doesn't guarantee you access to the gatekeepers in terms of selling material to other shows. Tell me how that happened.
No. Actually, Dad had nothing to do with that. When I was at college, a guy who was very tenacious about getting into the business, he got a chance to write for Love American Style, and I was writing anyway. And he said, "Do you want to write a Love American Style?" And I said, "Sure." And so my dad had nothing to do with it. He happened to be on the same lot. And this was kind of funny because this was the '60s,
right?
And so I had an interview for Love American Style to go.
Was this with Arnold Margolin and Jim Parker?
Right,
Uh-huh.
right. I remember I went home to get a coat and tie to go to the interview for the writing.
Right.
And Dad said, he saw me putting on a coat and tie. He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I have an interview to write for Love American Style." And he was very pleased with that, but he said, "Why are you putting a coat and tie on?"
Right.
And I said, "Well, I'm going to a meeting." And he says, "Put on your sandals."
That's one of the kind of the inside things I don't think most of our listeners are aware of. That informality is really the uniform of the day in the television business.
But what's really interesting is you, who were the younger generation, didn't quite know that about the business yet, and your dad stepped up to it. That's a great story.
There's a pecking order of dress, even today, because I've worked as an executive and I've worked as a producer and a writer and all these different things. And if you're at the network, you wear a coat and tie. And basically, if you're a producer, you can wear any one you want. But a lot of times, producers wear just like a jacket without a tie.
Right.
And then writers are freak shows, and they can. In fact, I once was working on a series, and there was a guy everybody thought was really creative because he wore a raincoat every day.
Oh my God, that's a funny story.
As long as he kept it buttoned, that's okay.
Yeah, there you go. But right. We equate genius and creativity with oddness.
Right, eccentricity, sure.
Right, right. And so people, my family has been as normal as you could possibly be, and we're also, a lot of times we're identified as that. How can you people be so normal and still be in the business?
No, you do present a very business-like persona, in contrast to many successful writer-producers who kind of go out of their ways. They're out of their way to be kooky.
They're always on the fringe.
Right. So you're on the Paramount lot. You've toned down your sartorial splendor, and you're looking casual. You go into that very first meeting. Was there an advantage or disadvantage to being Sherwood's son?
I didn't come up in that meeting.
Uh-huh.
They may have known who I was. I used to write. I still write very quickly. But the guy we presented, "Do you have any ideas for the show?" And we presented some ideas, and the guy said, "Could you write that?" And I said, "Sure." And we left the meeting, and I said to the guy, Alan, who was the guy who brought me over there, I said, "Do you want to write it or should I write it?" We'd never written together. And he said,
that's funny.
Why don't I write it and you'll rewrite it? And I said, "Okay." And then we presented it, and then it sold, and it was on the air.
So you had all the confidence in the world, even at that young age.
And did you have an agent at all?
Well, that led to an agent.
Of course.
It led to an agent. And I probably have had 20, 25 agents.
So you were, back then, you were a pretty cocky guy, walking into a meeting, selling an idea, and they ask you, "Can you write it?" And you say, "Sure, I can write it."
Yep.
And
I always had that. We just always kind of assume. We always it's funny, I think about writing scripts, and I sometimes say, "Well, I can't really think of the solution to a certain thing." And I've always known that there was a solution to be found, and it's never dawned on me that there isn't a solution.
So you don't suffer from writer's block?
Never.
Now, Lloyd, had you ever seen the show?
Love American Style? No one had seen it because it hadn't been on the air yet.
Oh, I see. This is at the
point.
infant stage.
And that for our listeners who may never have seen it, was very short segments. There were maybe 2 to 6 minute bits, basically.
Several were that. They had different lengths. This particular one was, I think, 8 minutes. And the irony of that is I wrote it, it sold. Then after that, I was already starting on Brady Bunch as a dialogue coach for the kids. I was sent, because I started to get a reputation as being a dialogue coach for children, I was sent on a pilot to Texas somewhere. And I was in Texas with a guy who was we shared a room, who was the teacher for the kids, and for the kids on this series, this pilot, which was not Brady Bunch. And that Love American Style was on the air that day. So I'm in a hotel room.
Oh, you're hot, yeah.
Yeah, in Texas somewhere. And that show comes on, and it's just me and him, and he fell asleep during my episode. And
I love it.
He was 8 minutes long.
Love it. So did you feel having sold that first bit of material to Love American Style, did that suddenly give you a feeling of real validation, like you're not just Sherwood's son anymore, you're standing on your own?
I didn't have a reputation of being Sherwood's son at that point until later on, when he brought me over to Brady Bunch. And this is for your listeners, it's a cross you bear if you have a relative in the business who is as successful as my father.
Right.
And so everybody always assumes you get your job because of that. And I'm not saying I didn't get into the business that way, but you have to prove your own mettle all the time.
Right.
And so since then, even today, and my father's passed away, people still have those questions about me until they work with me, and then that usually goes away. But
the reality is, and we've talked to a number of people in this podcast series, nobody gets into the business without help from somebody.
That's right.
So the word nepotism, while it may be a negative in many industries, it's almost an essential in our business. Because
it's an essential, but you don't have to be related to somebody. People will.
But you need somebody to crack that door open, or you're going to be standing outside the studio gates with your script in your hand forever.
Yes. Well, yes.
So I don't see any negative in having a dad who is extremely successful, and then you go make it on your own. I mean, most guys can't hold a candle to their very successful parent, and you did more than that.
I appreciate that. But, look, I'm sure people have brought up the stories of, like, Steven Spielberg snuck onto the Universal lot and took an office there and stuff. You do have to be, I'll say this much, the phone will never ring. The phone will never ring. You have to make it ring. You can't just sit by your phone and hope somebody's going to call you. You have to actually do something.
Right.
I'll give you an example. I was at a deal over at Paramount. There was a very nice young guy who was selling sandwiches. He got access to the lot by selling sandwiches. And so every day he would come through, and I'd buy a sandwich, and we'd talk about television. And then one day he said, "Can I give you a script that I wrote?" And I said, "Sure," because I would always do that, and help people, whatever. And the script was really good. And I said to him, "Hey, Peter, you just don't want to keep selling sandwiches." I said, "I'm doing a movie of the week, and I could use somebody on the set to help people learn their lines. Would you want to do that?" And they said that would be great. So I was helping him, and he won then 9 Emmy Awards after that.
Oh my gosh!
So,
well, that's a great example of paying it forward, isn't it?
Well, and then actually he gave my older son his first job on a set. Years later, I called him up, and we're not close friends or anything. He created a show called Frasier, and
little shows.
Yeah, Peter Casey. He's a wonderfully nice guy. But I remember calling him up many years later, and I said, "Hey, Peter, you got this show Frasier, and I got this son." And he said, "Let me call you back in 10 minutes." And he said, "Andrew starts work on Frasier on June 14th.
Hey, you know what? It's nice when people remember.
And you know what? I didn't even have to remind him of the story or anything. He knew.
I'm sure. Yeah. But in a business where a lot of people tend to think that they've invented themselves, it's nice to hear that somebody remembers how it happened for them.
I started several people. And I find most people remember where they came from.
Oh, sure. So you sell that first script to Love America Style. What happens then?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a funny story. I remember I sold it on one day, and I was still at UCLA. I was walking around across campus, and I run into a guy I knew, and he said, "How you doing?" I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm, trying to sell shows, this thing." He says, "Is that successful?" And I remember that was the one day that I had sold something. And I said, "Yeah, it's working out okay." He said, "Have you done sold?" He said, "Yeah, I sold something." And I said, "In fact, I sold something today." And he said, "How much do you make a day?" Well, that particular day I made money, and I hadn't made any money before that or after that for a long time.
Right.
I said, "You mean like today?" He said, "Yeah."
The peaks and valleys, right.
Yeah, it was a large amount of money. Not in the bigger scheme of things, but for a guy in college.
I was going to say, it's extraordinary to be an undergrad selling material to Hollywood.
Right. So after that, and I was working and doing. I worked at a camp, and I told ghost stories to kids, and I was doing stand-up, and my partner was a Black Panther. It was a very odd time during the 60s and late 60s.
Now that's a good story.
Your partner you have a stand-up comedy routine with a Black Panther partner.
Yeah, we were thrown out of most of the clubs in Los Angeles, and can we swear on this broadcast?
Absolutely, you can think you want, right?
Oh, okay. So I would call up, and I'd very meekly say, "I'd like to do a comedy thing at your club," and they'd say, "Well, we just are mostly folk songs in those days." And I said, "Yeah, but I think it would be great to break it up with a comedy team." And he said, "Well, we don't do comedy teams." And I'd say to Eddie, "You take it." And he goes, "Listen here, motherfucker, you're going to put us on, or we're going to burn your club down."
I like it. That's called leverage, baby.
It's called the good guy and the bad guy, right?
Yeah, that's it. So I always gave him the opportunity to deal with the nice guy. And so we did all these clubs.
Parenthetically, what did your rather normal family think of you doing stand-up with a Black Panther partner?
They were fine. I mean, my parents came to a recording session we did, and there was a lot of marijuana going around.
Right.
No, in the 60s? I can't believe that.
Well, my parents go to this party, and everybody was...
Oh, my goodness.
It was a pretty wild kind of scene. And they were fine. They were fine with it.
Sounds like you had cool parents.
Yeah, no, they were very sharp. And they went, and here's how all things come together. I had brought a date to that party she was African American, and she was beautiful. And my dad called up because he was on the lot where they were doing Love American Style, and he said, "What about that girl that you had brought to the party?" He didn't realize she was my date. And I said, "Well, can you bring her over to Paramount?" So I did, and that afternoon, I didn't know whether she had acted or not, and she was a regular on Love American Style.
Oh,
she got picked at 1:00 when I brought her over there.
Well,
she put me down as her agent, and then suddenly she had it.
I love it. Again, it's who you know, right?
Oh, there you go.
That's great. So you sell us for a script. You're doing some stand-up. You're in town and you're active, but you're still in college.
So Dad then created the Brady Bunch, and he said he wanted. I had been a dialogue coach earlier for him on a show called It's About Time.
Now, for those who don't know, tell me what a dialogue coach does.
Okay, it is not what everybody thinks. I didn't help people with like accents. It's just making sure that they know their lines, so when they go into the set, the director doesn't have to worry about them learning their lines, so they're ready to film.
So you're kind of a rehearsal functionary.
So did you experience any resistance on any of the cast members when you would come in? Did you set up an appointment with them? How does that happen?
Oh, it's like off camera. Well,
right.
People are over here doing one scene. I'm over here working with them.
I see.
So there was no.
So you had intimate involvement with the scripts. You're seeing all these scripts,
right? So anyway, so Dad's doing the show with the Brady Bunch, and I had been a summer camp counselor, and he said, "Would you want to work with me on the show with the kids, the Brady Bunch kids?"
Right.
And I said, "You're just giving me that, you've just offered me the job because I'm your son, and I don't want to do that." And he said, "Well, okay, do you have anybody you could suggest for that?" And I said, "Well, what are you looking for?" He said, "Well, I'm looking for somebody who's worked with kids." Well, I had been a summer camp. And then he said, and I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I'm looking for somebody who's been a dialogue coach before." And well, I had been a dialogue coach before. And it's somebody who has a degree in English, who's done some performing. And so he kept describing me. And I said,
3 strikes, right.
Yeah, there you go. So I said, "Okay, I'll do the show." And so then he
he overcame your what's the word, the filial resistance.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so he said, "Here's these 6 kids." And so he didn't tell me how to work with them or anything.
That's a lot of kids to work with.
Yeah. Well, I'd worked with hundreds of kids being a summer camp counselor. So, but I treated it pretty much, Brady Bunch, the kids was treated pretty much like summer camp. We just had a lot of fun. It was like arts and crafts. The main thing on that show, what I tried to achieve was a naturalness in front of the camera with the kids. So they were basically, and this was Dad's idea, he didn't describe the Brady Bunch kid in like a normal presentation, like one kid was fat and ate all the time, one kid was super smart. They were just themselves with different names. And he started to write episodes toward who they really were, in his opinion.
So he let the characters evolve out of the nature of the actors.
Right, and that was how we did it. And so
in my experience, and you downplay yourself in many regards in that way. In my experience, dialogue coaches frequently did more directing of actors than directors.
Yeah, you're right. In fact, I worked with one director, and I said, "Now, how do you want to work this?" And he said, "Well, when they come into the scene, I want them to know all the words, how to say it, and where to go, and how, And I said, basically,
that's called directing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I said, "What do you do?" And he said, "Well, I get the big money."
Right. At least he was honest.
Now, since we're talking about the kids right now, I was always curious because I always loved the introduction to the Brady Bunch, the children singing.
Right.
I thought that was a great idea. I don't know how often after that shows have done that. I don't know of any. But I thought it was a unique way to approach the show. Was that your dad's idea? How did that come about?
Well, actually,
do you know?
Here, I'll take a little credit. At the first year of the show, it was not the kids sing. There was a singing group.
Uh-huh.
And then I said, "Dad, the show has become really about the kids." And it says, "Here's the story of a man named Brady," and that. And I said, it's really about the kids. And so I said, I think it'll be warmer to have the kids singing. And that actually was my idea.
Well, you were right. You were right.
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed that.
Now, the funny part about that is they saw themselves as a singing group, and they cut some albums and things after that. So
well, why not?
I went over there, and I'm not the most musical person, so I go over to where we were going to record that day, and I get over there, and they say, all right, well, the kids are here, and the tracks are here, and who's going to be the musical director? And I said, me. And they said, do you know anything about music? I said, not very much. And they said, well, but you're going to run it. I said, that's right. And then the kids are there, well, who's going to do the harmony? He says, there's not going to be any harmony. And I said, they're going to be kids singing. They're going to sound like kids singing.
Which was key to its appeal, I think.
Right.
So as a young guy, you had an innate confidence to be able to step forward and handle the music and make suggestions to your dad, who was really running things.
My dad trusted me completely. And in fact, I got a call from the president of the studio, and he wanted to meet with me. And so I went to meet with him, and he said, we're getting a report that the kids are running all around, and they're not, he said the kids are very expensive property. Now, maybe this is my 60s origins or something.
Yeah.
But I said, he calls calling these kids property. And I said, they're not property, they're kids. He said, well, we don't want them to get hurt or anything. And I said, now look, they are kids, and that's what you're liking in front of the camera. And they have to have the chance to break their arm. I don't want them to break their arm, but they have to have that chance. So that's why I had them climbing all of the skywalks and everything and running all around. And I said, and if you want somebody to do that differently, then you're going to have to fire me.
So you had the balls to stand up to the president of production. Yeah. It's amazing because at your age, I never would have done that, and I was on the same lot at the same time. So after you did Love America Style, but you're still freelance writing, aren't you? You're doing the Love Boat?
No. I thought there was no time. I was on this Brady Bunch set from 6:30 in the morning till 8 o'clock.
Uh-huh.
Now at night I would write, and I wrote a miniseries that eventually sold to CBS.
So at what point did you go from, okay, I'm a dialogue coach, I'm taking care of the kids, I'm standing up to the studio execs because these kids have to be kids. The transition from that role to producer, that's a big jump.
Started the second year. I'd been dialogue coach, and I watched the associate producer and what he was doing. And I went to Dad and I said, look, here's the deal. I don't want to be a dialogue coach for kids. He said, but you're doing that so well. And I said, yeah, but that's not how I see what I want to do with my life. And I'd already been sent off on that other pilot I was telling you about to work with kids. So I was getting a reputation as being an outstanding dialogue coach for children.
Right.
And I said, I don't want to do that. And he said, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to be associate producer. And he said, well, I was so young and there hadn't been associate, which is basically the same job as associate producer.
Right.
So I did that for about 7 or 8 episodes, and I covered my own job as a dialogue coach and doing the associate producer job, being called production associate. And at 7 or 8 episodes in, I went to Dad and I said, look, you didn't hire an associate producer. I'm doing the job. I should get that money and that title, associate producer. And Dad said, I needed you to prove yourself first.
Your dad was a pretty wise guy, wasn't he?
My dad was very smart.
Really smart.
So he said, yeah, you can be associate producer.
I mean, as both a producer and as a parent.
Yeah, he was terrific guy. Then I was associate producer, and I did that for a year, and then I said, I just don't want to just be associate producer. He said, what can you do? And I said, well, I like to direct. And so then I directed.
Boy, your dad had a tiger by the tail, didn't he?
Now, were you married at the time, Lloyd, or...
No.
You were spending so many hours on the lot. Okay.
Well, this was pretty interesting. Telling a little bit of stories out of school. There were hardly any girls around. And so what I would do is I'd go see Florence Henderson in the makeup, where she was getting her makeup done, which was where they were getting made up for Love American Style, the girls, because they had a lot of women would play those parts.
Right.
So then I'd go over ostensibly saying hello to Florence, but really scouting out what the women were like.
You devil.
Yeah.
Shooting fish in a barrel, right.
Yeah, there you go. So I remember going out with this one girl who was on Love American Style, and we went out a few times, and then she called her up one time, and she said she had fallen in love with somebody, so we couldn't be going out anymore. And then called her up a couple of 3 weeks later, and I said, hey, have you got anybody else around? And so that's how I got fixed up with my wife. So that was that.
Oh, that's
really?
Great story.
Yeah.
That is a good story.
Yeah, there's no better place to meet smart, attractive women than on a studio lot.
I wasn't as interested in them being smart.
Very good.
At least you're honest. At least you're honest.
So Brady Bunch, the series was on for 5 years, right?
Right.
And when the show wrapped, you were then producing.
So I was the youngest producer in the business.
Right.
And I had gone to, as we all had gone to junior high for 3 years and high school for 3 years and then college for 4 years or whatever, and then Brady Bunch for 5 years, which was my life.
Right.
And I didn't anticipate that not continuing. And so at the end of the 5 years, I went to Paramount, which really didn't know me that well, except I was doing on the set, working on the show.
Sure.
I didn't get into too many, big meetings or anything.
Right.
So
You're bringing a show in on time and on budget, so
Right.
you don't get much attention. Right.
So I went to Paramount and I said, "What's next?" And they said, "The Door."
And
so
you had an agent at the time, right?
No,
No?
because I wasn't selling writing.
I see.
I was a producer, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So now I was out and out of work. Then I wrote a play or two, and then I wrote the first dinner theater play ever written in the United States, starring Ann B. Davis, who was a close friend of mine from Brady Bunch.
Right. She had kind of a very strong career in dinner theater, didn't she?
Yes. And then I got a call from a guy from the network who did know me, and he said, "Would you like to work at the network?"
So you just got a call from the network?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the guy who had worked with me. And so it got down that the net was ABC, and it got down to me and Brandon Tartikoff for this job.
Okay.
And they gave it to me because it was in comedy, and Brandon didn't have much comedy. And then they hired him in drama, and then he had his career take off after that.
Right.
So I was.
So
then
what
working
was
at
so tell me what is that like? You're coming from basically a tennis shoes, jeans, and sweater environment.
Right.
On the creative
Coat and
side,
tie.
dealing with talent every minute of the day, and suddenly you're in with the suits.
And I was wearing a coat and tie, and it was very hard because I was the first guy to go from being a producer to working at the network. Many people are network and then they become producers.
Right. Yeah. You were really swimming upstream, it seems like.
Right. But I wanted to see what that was like. So it was hard because I was getting what I thought were little victories rather than doing a whole show. I would fight with somebody to change the name Charlie to Chuck or something.
Right.
And it really didn't matter much. But I worked on very successful shows.
What was your title at the network?
Production executive.
Okay.
And so I worked on Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Three's Company, What's Happening. And they were the top 4 of the 5 top shows of the country. So I wrote a letter. Fred Silverman was the president of the network. I wrote a letter to him saying we should be paid according to the ratings of our shows. But he never responded to that.
As a network executive,
Yeah.
you're looking for commission.
Right. So he never responded to that. But then
well, that's very creative. You got to say that.
Yeah, and I worked there for about a year, and they told me that I had to come in. They were saying things that it had never been said to me before. They had said, "We need you to come in at 9:00, and you have to punch a clock and your coat and tie.
Right.
And if you work till a certain time, and then you go home. And if you do this for 52 weeks, they give you 50 weeks. You get 2 weeks paid vacation. I didn't even know who they were talking to.
That's Lloyd. That's called the straight world.
That was the only job I ever had. I had it for 1 year. It was the first and last job I ever had. So I did that for about a year, and then I was offered to leave there to produce a series called What's Happening.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, if you think about the network life, executive life, and you are far too creative for that world.
I remember the first day I was working there, and I had read in the paper that Laverne and Shirley Penny and Cindy were fighting with each other. Well, I'm used to dealing with people on that level. And I didn't realize or didn't know what was my boundaries or not. So
right.
I'm on the set of Laverne and Shirley, was #1 in the country, and these 2 women were fighting with each other. So I said to them, I want to go to lunch with you guys. And so the next day I was at lunch with Laverne and Shirley and me, and I started off the lunch by saying, what is all this shit about you guys not getting along? They started, I really want to do what's best for the show. And I said, well, look, I'm reading in the papers that you guys like this, you won't come out of your dressing rooms as she does, and all that kind of nonsense. I said, that's all stuff, you got to talk to each other. You can't talk to agents and press agents and this, because you have to have a relationship with each other that's got to transcend all that.
Yeah, that's everything else is counterproductive.
That's right.
For sure.
So I said, when the producers take you to lunch, don't you ever talk about these things? Well, the producers have never taken us lunch. I said, well, you have to talk to each other.
Well, the producer was Penny's brother.
That's right. That was part of the problem.
Yeah.
And so after that point, they did talk to each other, and they started ganging up on the other producers, and who were not very happy with what I had done, because they preferred them not talking to each other. And that. But I was used to just jumping in and dealing with a problem head on.
Yeah, protocol's not an issue when you need a solution.
No. Anyway, then I left and I started producing. I went back to producing, and I've been kind of been writing, producing, movies.
So you put the suit and tie back in the closet.
No, the first thing I did was I had a tie burning party.
Okay.
I had people come over and
You actually loved it that much, huh?
Really?
So
So-
some nice guys too, but I felt they had to be sacrificed.
So that transition from executive back into the creative ranks, how did you achieve that?
Well, I was offered the job because I had been a production executive for the network on What's Happening, and they needed a producer,
Uh-huh.
and I went over there, and I didn't stay there very long because I was, I wanted to do things my way, and there were 3 executive producers, and it didn't last very long, but I got back into the producing side that I wanted to be in.
Right.
And
then
that's
didn't Gilligan's Island surface again at that point?
Yeah. Then I did a lot of other kind of work, and then when Dad would want to work, which was reunion movies and things, TV movies, and so then I produced that, Rescue from Gilligan's Island. That was kind of funny because he had sold it to NBC, and the executive from NBC, we went and had a meeting. We said, "How do you want to work? We'll say you get the script and the outline and all of those, the normal procedure." And she said, "I got to be honest with you. I don't understand Gilligan. I don't know why it works. You guys seem to know, so why don't you just bring back the film?"
Well, what honesty. That's terrific.
We never heard anything like that, and so we took her at her word. Never comment, not one comment from the network, nothing. Dad and I did the show all by ourselves in a trailer on a lot somewhere. I put myself in it. My wife was in it. I mean, we did anything we wanted. We cast it the way we wanted. Not a comment, not a single comment from anybody. Till 2 weeks before it was going to go on the air, we called NBC and we said, "Somebody should look at this show."
Right.
You can't just put. And I'm happy enough. I thought it was good. It was cut to the right frame and everything.
Yeah.
Did it go on television? And then she said, "What do you mean no one's seen it?" And we said, "No one's seen it."
Wow, under the radar.
So, yeah. And then it went on and had the highest rating in 2 years.
Fantastic.
Of
It
anything
shows you
about
what a good network executive does. They leave
That's
things
right.
alone. Once they greenlight it, back off.
Well, all of our history is when we're left alone, we've been pretty successful. We did that same thing with Very Brady Christmas, Brady Goes Get Married, a bunch of other shows. And when we're left alone, we make people a lot of money and we're successful. But the executives have a way of most of the time jumping in and telling you the way they want it. And
Well, you have to understand. They had to punch in at 9:00 and they're pissed off, right?
There you go. That's one of the things. The hardest things for me as an executive was my desk was never empty. There was always the next script for the next show like that.
Yep.
I love the idea of personally starting with a blank piece of paper and then working all the way through actually watching on the air.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Your writing process. When you have that blank piece of paper, you have something in mind. You don't have.
Well, I don't just sit down to a blank piece of paper. I'm always thinking of something. And
Right.
the most important thing for me is to have and this is a terminology I use with myself, which was called a happy project, a project that it's in its right form. So if you come up with something that's a play or a movie or a TV show or a half-hour TV show, hour TV show, 3-camera, live, whatever, animated, the idea will tell you what the form should be for that thing. What's the happy project? What is that project? How should it best be realized? That concept, and that's how I sit down.
And do you give yourself a deadline? I mean, every writer has different process. Tell me what yours is when you're creating a pilot.
I don't have any deadline like that. The reason I write is that I have a compulsion to see the words "the end," and I do not know how to get to that unless I write the whole damn thing. I will never talk about my quality. That's other people can talk about that. But I do know that I am the most prolific writer there is, mostly because I write rapidly, and I haven't worked that much where I'm in an office all the time. So my time is my own.
Right.
Like today, we're having this interview, and then I will look at that day and I'll say, okay, in the afternoon I will write because I have to put a certain amount of time into that.
Funny how that works, doesn't it? I mean, I know so many writers who walk around for months wringing their hands, never writing anything.
Well, one of the reasons is I'm not a brilliant writer. I'm a good writer. So I always have to find a good word, not the perfect word.
Right.
So those people who are wringing their hands, I say, hey, that sounds pretty good, and I put it in.
Beyond your producing credits, you've got a number. You say you're prolific. You are indeed. Your writing credits span a couple, decades. Tell me what it's like having been a producer, having been at the network, and now you're sitting at the spelling company talking about a Love Boat script. The pitch and that kind of thing. Tell me how that kind of thing goes for you.
For the most part, I have not worked on other people's shows. Only in an emergency situation or, it's like my cousin was producing a show called Baywatch. And so they wanted to do some kind of Gilligan, dream sequence Gilligan thing. So then I would do that. Or a friend of mine took over the show Alice, and he wanted scripts assigned immediately. So I agreed to do that for him.
So again,
Yeah.
part of our theme is, because we get a lot of interest from people who want to get into the business, want to be successful. Relationships are key. I don't care who the relationship is with, but you need that relationship.
That's right. I taught at UCLA producing for television for 8 years. And I would give people, and I'm going to tell your listeners, exactly how to get into the business if they don't have those connections. And I will tell them, and I will tell your listeners, if you do exactly what I'm saying, you will get in the business.
Wait, I'm going to take notes. Go ahead.
Yeah, you should. They should look at what shows that they like, especially keeping informed about what shows are coming on the air. And now air means everything now. It's cable and it's network and it's, Netflix and all these different things. Read about what shows are on. You can find that out in Variety. You can find that out, in online, all kinds of ways. Then you get in touch, and it's easy. You call the studio or, wherever it's being taped or filmed, and you say, and here's the key. I'm a student, and I'm writing a paper about doing new pilots, about the network or whatever. Is it possible? I'm not looking for a job. I just would love to get onto a set and just observe, and I'll stay out of the way. Now, that's a pretty hard thing to refuse when you're not being asked for anything. That will give access, because just like that guy selling sandwiches, he got on a lot.
Right.
Your listeners will then get on a lot.
Getting inside those gates. Getting inside those gates.
That's something they're already ahead of 95% of the people. Now they're on a lot, they're on a show, and you don't say anything. You watch the show, you're just like this, and you're observing everything, and you see the area that you are particularly interested in. Now, you've lied because you said you were writing a paper.
Well, I wouldn't call it lying. I'd call it creating an opportunity.
Okay.
And can you at least get a snack at the Honey Wagon?
You probably will even get that.
Right. Okay.
The meal, everything is based upon food.
Right.
Sure.
Not only in the world, but in television, too. So you're looking at the person who is doing the kind of job that you want, and you go up to that person and you say, I'm really impressed with how you moved the camera, with how you took the notes, whatever you're doing. Is it possible I can take you to lunch? Now you're at lunch with the person in the field that you're interested in. At some point in that lunch, after you're asking your questions, that person has got to, just being a human, has got to say to you, why are you? What are you doing here? What are you about? And that's when you say, I really like camera, and that's what I want to go into. Is there a way that you can? And now you have a personal connection with someone who can help you along the way. If you do that, you will get into the business.
Well,
just being personable and nice and question and looking good and helping and all of those things. That's what you.
Yeah, and I think the other key is be somebody that people want to have around.
In any meeting, in any time, any conversation, realize you're not the only one in the conversation. Realize that the person you're talking to in a meeting has got a point of view. That person's point of view is to have you solve their problem. That's not your point of view. That's their point of view. How are you going to solve their problem? You're going to solve their problem by being a person they want to be around, by being a person they want to give a job to, whatever. Always remember that. We so often go into a meeting and the kind of questions you're asking is, if I work, how long do I have to stay here? Negative kind of question. You want to always solve the other person's problem. Remember who you're talking to.
With all this experience, and I can't even count the number of talented people you've worked with, if you can name one performer who is the best performer you've ever worked with, the best relationship, the best performance, the best working situation, who would that be?
The most professional actor I ever worked with, and it was only a couple of days or a week maybe, was Vincent Price. Vincent Price was a great guy. He was there when I got to work the days he was filming. He was already there. And we talked, and he knew all the lines. He knew, just the nicest guy. You talk to anybody who worked with Vincent Price, they will have loved him. He said, do you know why I'm here so early? And I said, yeah, why? He said, because there's nowhere else I'd rather be.
That says it all, doesn't it? That's old school class.
Yeah.
And tell me if you can, your best day in the business. Your best day on set, in the executive ranks, selling something.
The best day when I sold, after 20 years, I sold a miniseries to CBS. Now, it never got made, but I remember I was so excited because it was, again, starting with a blank piece of paper, and it was going to be, I thought, a miniseries. And I remember on the lawn, I went outside. I was waiting for my wife to come home with her, I can't remember which kid, but a kid. And I remember being on the lawn waiting for her, and I was jumping around. I was jumping around, and I realized as I was doing this, you know that expression, you're jumping for joy? Well, I was really jumping for joy. And I said, oh, that expression comes from something.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah. I've had some really great, really great experiences, but I just remember that.
Tell me your biggest surprise you've ever had in the business.
The biggest surprise was the first day I went on the set of Gilligan's Island. The scene had to do with, I guess there were some natives from another island were shooting an arrow at Gilligan. And I'd always wondered about special effects. And how are they going to, and they put Bob Denver standing next to this tree, and they were going to shoot the arrow. And I wanted to go, Jesus, they're going to risk this guy's life. They're going to put him right there. And I said, are they going to put an arrow on a wire, and they're going to make it go real fast? I didn't know what. So they said, Bob, stand over there. And then they put the arrow in the tree next to him, and they just plinked it. And so you'd see the guy shoot the arrow, and then you'd see that, and the arrow would, you'd think you saw it hit there, and I go, oh, is that depressing?
So is the magic of movies. Burst your bubble.
Lloyd, I'd be interested in asking, do you have any thoughts about reality show? I remember approximately 10 years ago, my husband said there is no way that reality is going to stay, and here we are. It's become pretty mainstream.
Yeah, it's the same way I didn't think rap music was going to.
Exactly.
Reality shows have been here around television forever. They never were called that. I mean, if you think back about Leonard Nimoy in Search Of, or You Asked For It, or all these things, now they're lumped under an umbrella and called reality shows, but they've always been there. I mean, even 2020 is like a reality show. Good ones will survive and bad ones will go away. All reality shows were created because they were an inexpensive alternative to dramatic shows. Dramatic shows became very, very expensive. So reality shows were created, and we can use up an hour that doesn't look like an hour dramatic show, and people will look at that, and that's how they that was their derivation. Now they're just as expensive as dramatic shows, mostly because agents get involved and the producers get much more higher paid than they used to, and you got to go further and further out, so you'll end up with like a really wonderful show like A Great Race or something.
Many reality shows are almost as tightly scripted as our dramas.
Yeah, I did one, The Real Gilligan's Island, which was very unfortunate to have done it, but I did learn a lot about reality shows, that they're anything but reality.
Yeah.
You tell somebody, isn't this how you feel? I mean, if I was that mad as you should be, here's what I'd say.
Right.
And they kind of repeat back what you say, and boom, you have a reality show. But you know what? People love the idea that it's based upon that it is real. Like movies of the week, or even feature films. When you see a feature film that says based on a true story, or this is a true story, that's exciting that something like that actually happened. Now, when it says based on a true story, it may be one character had the same name. That's about it.
So tell me about your live theater experience. You've been really delving deeply into that.
Well, it started with Ann B. Davis, and the play I wrote with Wendell Burton called The Nearlyweds, and it was because I had gone to see her in this dinner theater. I didn't know what dinner theater was. It was in Shreveport, Louisiana, and the play was not very good, and she was loved, and they loved the play. And I said to her, "Why are you doing this play?" And she said, "Well, all plays had come from Broadway dinner theater plays, and Broadway was going further and further out. This was the 70s."
Right.
And the center of the country liked things that were a little bit more gentle. And so I said, well, I'll write you a play. And Wendell and I had done a movie. I'd written a movie that he'd been in. And I said, do you want to write a play? And he said, sure. And so we got together and we wrote this play. And the next thing we knew, it was booked in Granny's Dinner Theater in Dallas, Texas. And it opened, and in an interview with the papers down there, they said, how does it feel to have written the first play for dinner theater, which is we didn't know that we had done.
Wow.
But we applied certain rules to what we felt it should be. And that gets back to what I was talking about, Happy Project.
Yeah.
Where this is what that medium should have. It should be one set. It should be limited number of actors. It should be 3 acts because they had to sell drinks in between. There should be a main star who's an older person who the audience would gravitate to, who would get people into the theater. Those were kind of rules that I had made up. And then since then, I've loved theater. And I've done at least one play every year ever since then, and of all different kinds. I've done a lot of musicals and one-man shows and dramas and comedies. And my wife and I have a a children's theater, the only equity children's theater in the city of Los Angeles.
I think you've won some awards, haven't you?
We won lots of awards. More important than the awards, we've done a lot of charity work, and we've been honored by the House of Representatives and the Congress and the Senate and the city, But now we have 18 different shows, and we bring them back, and we've been doing that every Saturday for the last 30 years.
So you have 18 shows, and you were the guy who only thought you could write one. I love it. I love it.
Right.
So you are a paradigm of entertainment industry career reinvention.
I'm going to be doing some stuff coming up that is probably the most exciting stuff I've ever been involved in, and it's very wide-ranging, and I can't say too many specifics, but I'll give you an idea of where it's going. The future of television is very exciting, very different than what's on the air now. And not program-wise, but how delivery systems and all. And Netflix is kind of showing the way.
Sure.
People are binge-watching. You're going to be your own programmer. Your television set is going to be your computer, and it's all one and the same thing. So you're going to be able to watch anything you want, anytime. That's the future. We will give up this idea of everybody watching the same thing and talking about it the next day. That's not going to happen anymore. That was the same as what happened to magazines, when there used to be a Life magazine, a Look magazine,
right.
Post magazine. And now there's specifics, and you're going to go see your own specific. That means there's always going to be a lot more programming to do to satisfy all these different audiences. It's very, very positive. So what I'm involved in is there's going to be new networks that are coming on these portals where you'll view these things. And they're going to be very funded. And many people who are older, who have got talent, for example, a lot of the people who used to do network television, they're working for Disney now on shows the kids are not watching. My son has a series on Disney now that he created.
Uh-huh.
But many of the directors and the producers and writers over there are people who are considered too old for television, but Disney knows they know what they're doing, and they're putting them on those shows. So the future is very bright.
I think I agree with you. I think the medium is exponentially expanding.
That's right.
Because,
if you're YouTube and all that, and networks look for those YouTube people to put series on, and things are 7 minutes or 5 minutes long, and it's fabulously exciting. The only people that don't want it or are scared of it are people who are mired in the present or the past.
Right.
And they're not saying to work.
Well, it goes back to the transition between radio and television, between black and white and color.
Sure.
I remember when color television came out, everybody said it'll never work.
Nothing ever works. I mean, when it's new, people are always questioning it.
Right.
People that were smart, and it's funny, the people that were smart, when the guys who did, I think it was either Lone Ranger or Superman or both, I don't know. They did those. They shot those shows in color, and there was no color television. But that was smart.
Sure.
They said to me on the show that I'm going to be working on, they said, "Do you want to do this in 2K or 4K?" Well, I said, "We're going to do it in 4K," and they go, "Okay." They're all in favor of that. And I said, "But I have to tell you something. I don't know what 2K and 4K is."
But you know that 4K is coming, whatever it
Got
is.
to be twice.
2K. Right. Perfect.
Let's do that.
Really. Hey, there's a rumor running around Hollywood like crazy about a Gilligan feature film. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, it's not a rumor.
Is it going to happen?
I can't say that. I know that we're working on a script. I'm working with Josh Gad.
Uh-huh.
And he's working on a script. And however, it's been in development since 1988, not with his script, but other scripts. And
that's one of the things our listeners respond to is the fact that overnight success is about 18 years.
Yeah.
That's about what it takes. Well, listen, next time we talk, I hope you can reveal some of these details to us, and we can talk about that success. Lloyd, this has been fantastic. I can't thank you enough for doing this. And as I say, I'm gonna watch your progress. And as soon as you can reveal some information about the new stuff, I want to hear everything about it.
Well, when you'll be reading about it in the paper.
Okay.
And then or on the news, you'll see. And then just give me a call, and I'll tell you all about it.
You got it, man. Thanks again for doing this.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
All right. We'll talk soon. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that was great. And if anybody's looking for how to get into the business, Lloyd had that.
It was
that
almost
answer.
like going to a class, wasn't it?
Exactly. And it's so, great of him to share that insight. And that's like a valuable tip. We should be charging money for this, don't you think?
as a teaching tool.
Really, really. Anyway, thanks to Lloyd for that great interview. And before we go, just want to remind people
to go wherehollywoodhides.com and to buy our book.
Where Hollywood Hides, Santa Barbara, Celebrities in Paradise.
That's right. It'll be a great gift book.
It's a hardcover format, full color. It is the ultimate gift.
And I want to thank Bob ahead of time because he will be taking me to the island of
Tetiora,
okay.
Tetiora. Marlon,
yes.
You and Marlon Brando. Okay.
Yes, I wish.
All right.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Yeah. Hey,
okay.
Thanks for the great episode.
Okay.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Today's music is provided by Chance McCullough, and you can hear more of his original soundtracks at chancemccullough.com. And if you enjoyed today's podcast, please take a minute and give us a 5-star rating and a quick comment or review at iTunes/Where Hollywood Hides. Those reviews really do help get the word out. And drop by our Facebook page at facebook.com/Where Hollywood Hides and hit that like button.